supercapacitors, which each of supercapacitor will have different carbon. What this means is that one supercapacitor will have some good quality carbon. This carbon is some activated carbon which have the surface area of around 2000 square meters per gram, and the second supercapacitor will have some low quality carbon, and this carbon is actually made from some charcoal briquette, and the surface area of this carbon is unknown. I actually don't know what is the surface area of this charcoal briquette carbon, and that I and you will know what performance I will get with each supercapacitor. For this reason, I need to make some basic supercapacitor to test it. And let's do it. The design of each supercapacitor will be really simple. And actually, for the current collectors, I will use these two graphite plates. The separators will be made from some toilet paper. And each supercapacitor will have one of these carbons, and the electrolyte is this. This electrolyte, which I have here, is made from 50 milliliters of water, and into this 50 milliliters of water I add 7.1 gram of sodium sulfate, and on the top I also put 0.
I want to talk quickly about a couple of terms that are used quite often interchangeably and often incorrectly. The reason I'm getting picky is because it changes how we use them, it changes how we process them, and it changes how we look at them. The terms are carbon, graphite, and graphene. Carbon is an element. It is composed of a certain atomic configuration. Now, carbon can be naturally found in nature in three different forms. One of them is diamond with a crystalline structure. Not going to worry about that one. The next one is graphite. Graphite has more of a honeycomb structure, and it comes in layers, and those layers can be very important to us. Finally is amorphous carbon, which is found in like coal and charcoal. This has no specific crystalline structure. Now, carbon, amorphous carbon, you find in things like the activated carbon for a fish tank, where they've typically come from coconut shells that have been processed and burned and processed into this activated carbon. And then there is graphite, which is typically dug out of the ground and comes naturally occurring in these marvelous layers that are so important. The layers are important because of the third term, graphene. Graphene is a 1 atom thick part of graphite, a 1 atom thick piece of graphite, if you will, that has special properties, that has very specific properties. It's incredibly strong. It's stronger than diamond in the right direction. It is incredibly conductive electrically. And there's marvelous things that people are even now continuing to find more and more things that they can do with it. It has been very difficult to make, but Robert Murray Smith has come up with a couple of ways, and one in particular that seems like it's especially easy, even for someone like me in a home or school laboratory. So we're going to be dealing with each of these elements separately, each of these materials separately, I should say. We'll have carbon, and some of it probably like the activated carbon from the charcoals. We will have graphite, and we will have graphene, and we'll be processing them each separately. Now, I don't want to get too picky about graphene. Sometimes people talk about multi-layer graphene. Technically, that might not be able to be called graphene if it has more than one layer. It's good enough. It's fine with me. If you refer to something as that has 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 100 layers, as multi-layer graphene. It's just a slice of graphite, if you will, but I understand where people are going. They're talking, it's a way of talking about how close it is to pure one atom thick graphene. And indeed, I suspect a lot of the materials we will be using and calling graphene will actually be multi-layer graphene, in the sense that we may not purify it all the way down to one atom thick in all cases. So I just wanted to make that clear. We're going to be careful about that as we go on through the experiments, and I thank you for your time.
Because that account was paperless. No statements related to that home equity line of credit were going to be mailed to his house. So Michael Cohen's wife was never going to see some inexplicable $130,000 payment on a statement and question him as to what he was up to. Now we know. Also, why, when the reimbursement was made to Michael Cohen for him paying for Stormy Daniels' hush money, why did that include not just the Stormy Daniels reimbursement, but a bunch of money for a bunch of other things? Well, we learned today that this was going to be the last money Michael Cohen ever received from the Trump Organization. In these payments, they included everything he was owed. They were zeroing him out. He was leaving the company. And why was he doing that? Because if Michael Cohen was still a Trump Organization employee like he had been, it wouldn't make sense for him to be getting checks as a retainer for legal services. He would just be getting a salary like he had been for years before. So instead, Cohen leaves the Trump Organization, becomes the personal attorney to the president, which makes the legal retainer checks look like that was how Trump was paying for Cohen's services as his personal attorney. In reality, Cohen was never paid anything for being personal attorney to the president. That's just what they called it. That's just what they called him, so it wouldn't look so weird that Trump was paying him $35,000 checks every month. Oh, now that makes sense. Also, why did prosecutors go out of their way to point out that Ben Roethlisberger, the former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, had been at the golf event with Donald Trump at the time of the Trump-Stormy Daniels alleged sexual encounter? Now we know. Contrary to Trump's denials that he had sex with Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen testified today that when he asked Donald Trump if anything had happened between him and Stormy Daniels, Trump bragged to Michael Cohen that, yeah, even though he was there at this golf event with Big Ben Roethlisberger, the women there, like Stormy Daniels, they wanted him more than they wanted Big Ben. All the little mysteries that have popped up over the course of us learning about this scandal, all the little mysteries that have popped up are inexplicable sort of sidebars and detours that we didn't necessarily understand as the prosecution has laid out its case thus far. Michael Cohen today provided the all is revealed scene in this detective story, tying up the loose ends, filling in the gaps in the story. And yes, bringing us to the main event, the big whodunit. Michael Cohen, longtime lawyer, enforcer, bully, quote-unquote fixer for former President Donald Trump, the man who, in the mob analogy, was not so much the hitman as he was the underboss, the man who testified today about, for example, telling suppliers and contractors and vendors to Trump University that they would get 20% of what they invoiced Trump University for, or they'd get nothing and they'd like it. Michael Cohen gave testimony today that Donald Trump was in the room where it happened, in the worst possible way.
In this episode, we're taking on one of the largest explorations we've ever attempted. Over the course of 2 days, we'll traverse more than 20 miles in the sprawling tunnels of this abandoned iron mine. Join us on this exciting adventure.
Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com/properpeople and use the code properpeople to get 10% off your first purchase.
You can go in right here. We're about to go into the mine, and then this music starts playing.
Sounds like an ice cream truck.
Sounds like someone walking through the woods, playing an instrument.
Which is weird. Who does that?
It's getting louder. We should get in before someone shows up here. The music felt as if it was some kind of an omen. Whether it was good or bad, well, we'd find out. There's stuff growing out of this rock. The mine is located in a heavily industrialized region of Europe, and the iron ore extracted here would have been used to feed nearby steel mills. What we're venturing into now is actually a network of different mines, all interconnected and dating anywhere from 30 to 150 years old.
Bats.
It goes up to another floor.
Bat.
Oh, there's
Flew
a
right
bat.
in front of you. Alright. So slippery.
There's a collapse there, and there are arrows on the wall on either side. That's where we are now. Sure, it's going to get way crazier as we go on. Okay, when we get to this fork, I'll add to the map. Oh, that's nasty. Can still see daylight out there. We've got a number 19 here. That'll be useful on our way out. So this was pretty long. And we have something each direction. And on this wall here we have 19.
And then make sure we know which way we go after the split. Make like a dotted path.
What if we retrace our steps though? That's gonna get crazy.
Just do it at each turn.
I'll just do like spaced out dots.
It's so foggy.
It's just humid. So your warm breath, and it's cold in here, instantly turns to mist. It looks like something happens up here. Some kind of a split.
Another three-way split.
So zigzag to represent that was like a long walk. And then we come here. And I need to see the angles. So that's like a slight angle, and these two run
Like a V.
This runs in a straight line.
Yeah.
And one that went here. And then one that kept going straight. And then right here we have F, F. And a moment later, we have yet another split. Straight. We're gonna go that way, right?
Sure.
I think I spy another fork.
Yeah.
It's like constant forks. Which is good for exploration. We have to keep pulling out the map every 2 seconds to update it.
Put it away. Maybe put it in a jacket pocket.
It is in a jacket pocket.
Okay, so it's not.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm not going down here. I'm just seeing what this random rail is here. Is that rail? Oh shit.
Wait.
There's another floor.
No, this is just water. I'm shiny there.
There's another floor up there with this rail.
Yeah, but
hanging
it looks
down.
like there's a lot of collapses in that floor.
Yeah. No Wi-Fi down here.
No
Crap.
cellular service at all either.
Obviously.
Well, obviously,
Maybe
you're
someone
talking about
installed a router
Wi-Fi.
and ran an extension cord in here. I don't know. I was just turning off Wi-Fi to save battery.
Yeah, are you on airplane mode?
I had
and everything?
airplane mode on, but Wi-Fi on also.
Okay,
I figured
yeah.
I'd just turn off everything.
Because searching for service
Yeah.
uses even more battery. Another fork, by the way.
Yeah, if we go down left, we can stay on this map a little bit longer.
Okay, let's go left, so we
Okay.
don't have to change the page.
Here's where we came in at. 2 connects
To that, that's 2.
page 1 here. And
Wait,
then
there was another one that came.
1 goes to 3. And then 3 should go to page 2 here.
This is where I'm starting to map out a lot
Here.
of splits.
We went to page 4. Now we're on page 4, and we're almost off this page. This tunnel wasn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
It looked like a side branch with more side branches on it the whole way. Don't get too close.
Jeez.
Is there a ladder or anything?
No. That's a fuck no to me, for me. That's a hell no.
Oh my god. Okay, this kind of opens up.
This looks collapsed.
Wait, there's like a grate here. Okay, that's a shaft. Or is it? No, it just goes down a floor.
Yeah.
And there's a ladder over there.
There is a ladder, so we're in the right direction. More shit.
This grating is actually made of rails. Larger rails and then the smaller minecart rails. Yeah, this looks like a good main tunnel to be in. There's a pipe and power. Who wants to go down this ladder first? I really wish I had gloves.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah, I'm sure the ladder's fine. It's just disgusting. Covered in mud.
One touch of the ladder did that. I grabbed it once.
I wanted to buy gloves.
You wanted to buy gloves when we already parked to come in here.
Hey, that's not too late. It's never too late.
Alright, I need more light.
Leaders of Scientology, we are anonymous. Over the years, we have been watching you, your campaigns of misinformation, your suppression of dissent, your litigious nature. All of these things have caught our eye. With the leakage of your latest propaganda video into mainstream circulation, the extent of your malign influence over those who have come to trust you as leaders has been made clear to us. Anonymous has therefore decided that your organization should be destroyed.
January 15th, 2008, just days prior to Anonymous declaring their war, a 9-minute interview with Tom Cruise leaked in which he discussed an active role in the controversial organization known as Scientology. This leaked video was recorded for internal use for the eyes of Scientology members only. According to Gawker, who hosted the file where other sites would not, it was a video of indoctrination. This interview, as well as other videos that happened to leak, were very quickly suppressed by the church, attempting to censor the freedom of information. This is exactly when Anonymous took notice and declared their war, ending with the now well-known sign-off for the shadowy organization.
We are Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Little did or could anybody know, this was the start of a reign of terror that lasted for 5 years. Anonymous became the perfect cloak under which to hide for any and all who wished to participate in digital anarchy. Some who did it just for the lulz, some who did it to send a message. One particular group rose from these ashes like a phoenix. Where it all started with Scientology, they would go on to hack some of the largest corporations on the planet, going toe-to-toe with federal government, and left a legacy of pure chaos. This is the rise of Anonymous and their war with Scientology. Prior to these events, Anonymous existed only in the minds of those who frequented the more edgy areas of the internet.
Who is this 4chan person or website?
Prior to 2008, where they did organize briefly, there was no structure, there was no goal. It was simply a collective name that people used while doing things to fuck with others. Showing up to video games with identical characters and being disruptive.
I actually have HIV, and
You are in the pool, like, right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Prank calling early internet TV shows.
I'm Xenon. Can you do a barrel roll for me?
A barrel roll?
Yeah, a barrel roll. On air.
Defacing public websites, and posting the results to the growing image board of anonymous users known as 4chan. It was all just a way to have fun on the internet. After January 15th though, someone decided it was time for a change. A post appeared claiming that it was time for B, the term for the random section of the image board, to do something big. That big thing was to take down Scientology. The comment section of this post was full of people mocking the concept. A random image board cannot take down a pseudo-religion with the backing of wealthy people and an army of lawyers, said one poster. And yet, as the thread remained, it filled with more and more people who agreed. And trying to take down this pseudo-religion was exactly what they started to do. It all began with an IRC channel. Hundreds of users flooded in, speaking excitedly about the plans that they'd been thinking up. It was all going to start simple. Use popular stress testing websites to perform distributed denial of service attacks on the Scientology websites. A DDoS or DDoS as it's more commonly known, essentially harnessing massive amounts of connections, sending data to a server in order to temporarily overwhelm the provider and deny regular service, usually knocking them offline for short periods of time. This very quickly became the largest raid in 4chan history, bringing old users of the website back to participate and sparking a feel of mob mentality. Eventually, leaders started to emerge, not in the traditional sense because nobody would listen to an actual leader, but they were the ones putting forth ideas and rounding people up to do things. This is how the eventual Anonymous War Declaration video was created. A single man's idea, but worked on as a collective, where they would sit and laugh about how over the top it was, knowing full well that things were not going to go much further than what they always did. Just a bit of light trolling, a little bit of DDoSing, and then people would get bored and move on. But not this time. Even the organisers had no idea how far-reaching this movement was going to be. Mainstream publications picked up on the video declaring war against Scientology, and the hundreds of IRC users turned to thousands overnight. The mainstream news talking about this had essentially signal boosted what was initially going to be somewhat of a joke. The result was, ironically, the IRC servers being used by Anonymous being DDoSed with real traffic from all the new recruits who were joining by the minute. They'd heard that Anonymous was going after Scientology, and they wanted to be involved. At this point, they eventually had to split the IRC into multiple servers due to the sheer scale of what was now known as Operation Chanology. Leadership still didn't exist in any traditional sense, but there were more reputable and organised channels who would hash out the next steps, which for now was limited to figuring out which of the several DDoS tools to use and on which specific Scientology websites, as well as marketing, which meant essentially creating memes. The first big blow was struck on January 19th, where Anonymous managed to collectively bring down the Scientology main website entirely, which again caught the attention of Sky and Fox News, who in their uninformed, sensational, and laughably boomer way called this group super hackers. In reality, very few people of the thousands involved had even a remote concept of how to hack anything. They were essentially just running a program they were told to use, and that was that. Either way, the first blow had been struck, and Scientology was now responding. They talked in interviews with the media about how the hackers were cyber terrorists who were performing hate crimes against religious groups. They also employed a cybersecurity company to assist in their defense against the novice DDoS attacks of the Anonymous collective. The ball was back in Anonymous's court, and their response was protests. They'd already organised the IRC into channels based on city locations, and so they scheduled what they referred to as making the internet go outside. They used this as an opportunity for more marketing by essentially leaking protest dates and locations to media outlets, and told people to wear masks while heading to the Scientology church locations. The results of this were originally nowhere near as impactful as you would expect, but it did show a willingness within the community to really put themselves out there for this cause, which was still lacking in real direction and more of a joke than any real threat. Over the coming months though, over 7,000 people showed up across 70 different cities during the protests. Definitely not a small number, and considering the level of engagement would be considerably lower than that of the people willing to participate online, it was a scary thought as to how many people were backing this collective and just how many people were anonymous. This is also where the mask from V for Vendetta was co-opted and popularized as a symbol of Anon, which went together perfectly with their new mantra.
We are anonymous. We are legion. Expect us.
At this stage, the more ambitious voices in the movement had started to notice the power they could wield if they were only to get organized. A French PhD student known as Hausch sent out a scout to survey each of the hundreds of IRC channels who acted as a splinter cell of the collective, finding which of the voices within commanded the most respect, then inviting them to join a more private group who would hopefully decide the future of the movement behind the scenes. Meetings began to be hosted regularly for hours at a time, but pretty soon they discovered that there was no real way to properly organize such a group. Infighting started almost immediately. The leadership group was then leaked to the masses, and generally people were bored with the low levels of impact they were actually having on the Church of Scientology. It didn't help, as well, that the FBI had already scooped up and arrested 2 people out of the thousands who had performed some of the earliest DDoS attacks some months ago, putting everyone on notice that involvement in this matter was not a joke and there could be very, very real, life-changing consequences. In one of these cases, the church sued a college kid for $100,000 in damages for his part in the DDoS, which was eventually lowered to $20,000, which he was ordered to pay back in full. They also pushed for a 12-month jail sentence to deter others, with the lawyer claiming Anonymous resembled Nazis and terrorists. The young man did eventually plead guilty and accept a year in prison. This was the turning point for Anonymous as a collective. Anybody could join, and they could join for any reason. The barrier for entry was simple: be involved, say you are anonymous, and that's it. The concept of anonymous is ethereal, and that is exactly what scared security experts. It could be anyone, it could be everyone, and that was terrifying. This was the biggest weapon in the anonymous arsenal, but also their biggest weakness. What everyone quickly discovered was that anyone being able to claim anonymous or join the ranks could also rock the whole boat. They could do things that ruin future plans. They could be law enforcement. They could convince others to change